Sarah had no ancestry. She and her mother have lived in different towns since she was a young girl, and after adolescence, she strayed through a life of failed relationships and part-time jobs. For the first time, she felt like she belonged when she learned that she had inherited her grandmother's old country home. It was a huge Victorian mansion set atop a hill and encircled by dense forest and twisted trees. The locals didn't discuss it. No one had ventured inside since the old woman's death. However, rumors didn't matter to Sarah. The house was all she had left, and she needed a new beginning. On a rainy Friday, she drove through muddy back roads by herself until her headlights illuminated the house's dark silhouette. The air felt heavier as soon as she entered through the front door. Even with all the windows closed, a chilly breeze blew through the hallway, and the old wood creaked under her feet. It felt as if time had paused, the world had transformed, yet the house remained unchanged. Something didn't feel right as she looked around the rooms. It was all in order, as it had been for years, but thick dust layers contrasted with the odd tidiness. The family pictures were still on the walls, but the faces appeared more gloomy and hollow in some way. The dining room table was still in place, with rusted utensils and mold-covered plates. The bedroom doors upstairs had icy knobs and were locked from the inside. The attic, however, felt more off than anything else. Sarah sensed a presence hovering over her head as soon as she walked into the house. Above her, she could hear faint creaks with each step she took. Not the haphazard shifting of an old house, but deliberate, measured steps. It only got worse at night. Fractures, whispers, the gentle scrape of wood, resembling fingernails. She attempted to explain it away by claiming that it was only wind, outdated pipes, or her imagination, until the day she eventually lowered the ladder in the attic. There was a dry snap as the pull string gave way. It was a different air, colder, thicker, almost rotten, that poured out from above. With a flashlight in hand, Sarah ascended gradually, each stride becoming more difficult. The attic was large and filled with antique dolls, locked trunks, empty frames, and old furniture covered in white sheets. However, something was standing upright under a thick cloth at the far end, close to a small round window. She approached and removed the cover. It was a mirror. Not just any mirror, though. It was enormous, standing almost 7 feet tall, and framed in black wood that was carved with distorted faces and shapes that resembled snakes and seemed to be screaming. It seemed as though the frame had absorbed real pain because of how vividly the details were rendered. The glass was too clean, immaculate. Not a single dust particle had accumulated. A shiver went down her spine as she gazed into it. There was something wrong with her reflection. She was unable to explain the subtle delay and dissonance. Her reflection hesitated as she held up her hand. Then it grinned, before she did. Her heart pounding, she retreated. Her hands shaking, she snatched the closest sheet and flung it back over the mirror in a panic. Not daring to turn around, she ran out of the attic and closed the hatch as fast as she could. However, a change had already occurred within her. The noises above her room became more intense that night. She woke up gasping at 3:12 a.m. It was freezing in the room. Freezing, not just cold. The air stung her lungs as she exhaled in pale clouds. She checked the windows and wrapped herself in a blanket. They were all securely locked. Then she heard it. Above her, there was a slow dragging sound, then deliberate, cautious footsteps. She stopped. A logical explanation rushed through her mind. Squirrels? Is the house settling? However, the pace was too slow, too human. The door handle then turned. Slowly, consciously. Trying not to breathe too loudly, she pushed her back against the door, locked it, and ran out of the bed. Nothing on the other side. Nothing but quiet. However, she was aware that something was present, awaiting. Despite all of her instincts telling her to stop, she climbed back up the following morning. The darkness in the attic seemed to have increased overnight. They unlocked the mirror, once more, and this time, her reflection gave her a look that wasn't her own. They had colder eyes. The look, intriguing, like it was researching her. The glass started to fog up from the inside as she moved closer. It wasn't the room's condensation. The mirror seemed to be breathing. Her throat constricted. Then, even though she hadn't moved, the reflection moved forward. It reached up and touched the glass. Like water under pressure, the surface glistened a little. That was the last straw. Sarah ran away. She slammed the hatch shut, dragged a bookshelf under it, and staggered down the attic steps. Something touched the back of her neck as she struggled to breathe in the hallway. A sigh. Freezing. As if she had just heard someone laugh behind her ear. There was nobody there when she turned around. Only quiet, and the nagging sense that she wasn't alone in the house anymore. Sarah tried to pretend nothing had happened over the course of the following few days. She avoided the upstairs hallway at night, kept the attic hatch locked and blocked, and spent her days cooking, cleaning, and doing anything else that would take her mind off the mounting burden on the house. However, nothing was effective. The sensation of being observed persisted. She saw something that shouldn't be there every time she passed a mirror. Any mirror. A shadow behind her. An overly prolonged smile. Eyes that were different from her own. It felt wrong. Even her reflection in the kitchen window. At first it was subtle, as if she was deceived by her own thoughts. However, things worsened. She was standing in the bathroom one afternoon, brushing her hair, when the reflection remained stationary. She stopped. Her arms came to a halt, but the image continued to move more slowly, seemingly mocking her. Her heart thumping in her chest, she bolted from the room and slammed the door. It was no longer trapped, whatever had been in the attic. She had been followed by it. With the lights on, Sarah fell asleep. She burned sage in every room, piled salt across every doorway, and even called a local priest, but he declined to visit. He fell silent when she brought up the location of the house and then cautioned her, saying, "Some places don't want to be cleansed." The dreams started that night. After reliving the same nightmare, she would wake up sweating profusely, seeing a shadowy reflection of herself in the mirror, whispering unintelligible words. The voice became clearer each night, more recognizable. It was calling to her now, not just talking, pleading with her to return to the attic. Her hand was already reaching for the attic rope when she woke up in the hallway on the 5th night. She didn't remember getting out of bed. With a scream, she fled back to her room and locked herself in. She knew in her heart, though, that she couldn't fight it indefinitely. She was wanted by whatever was in the mirror, and it was growing stronger. Sarah started searching the basement for anything her grandmother might have left behind in a desperate attempt to find answers. She discovered a small wooden chest with a broken lock among piles of rotting books and old newspapers. There were hundreds of letters in the same shaky handwriting inside. All of them were addressed to her grandmother, Margaret. The majority consisted of endless babbling about the thing in the glass, cautions against feeding it, and repeated exhortations to never break the rhythm. The shortest letter was the last one, which read, "If it smiles first, it's already out." Sarah's blood froze. Her grandmother had been warning whoever came next, not being senile. It wasn't just a haunted mirror. It was a jail, and there was something inside that had been longing to come out. As soon as Sarah found it, she knew the warning signs had begun. The mimicry, the sounds, the breath. She wasn't experiencing hallucinations. They had targeted her. When she woke up that night, the mirror was still in her bedroom. Not a duplicate, not a dream. Somehow, the 7-foot twisted mirror from the attic was now at the foot of her bed. The sheet had vanished. Like rippled water, the glass glistened. Inside, her own image stood still, her eyes wide. It grinned. She yelled and grabbed for the door, but it remained in place. The lights flickered, then went out entirely. Only the dim glow of the mirror remained as darkness engulfed the space. She could see her reflection moving in that faint light, but she remained motionless. It moved forward and touched the glass with its hands. Then one hand got through. The surface curved as if it were liquid, and long, pale fingers appeared, clutching the frame from within. Her body was immobile. Halfway out, the thing stepped. It had her face, but it was twisted. The mouth was too large for its face. The eyes of the creature were excessively dark. "Trade places," it murmured. Sarah lunged at the mirror and knocked it over with all her strength. The glass did not break, but it did crack. A high-pitched, deafening scream came from the figure inside. Smoke poured out of the shattered frame. As she rushed toward the hallway, the door suddenly flew open. One by one, the lights surrounding her burst as she ran. The entire house seemed to moan, as if it were alive and in pain. Shivering and barefoot, she managed to make it outside and didn't stop until she reached the wood's edge. The mirror failed to follow. However, the house changed. She glanced back and saw that every window was dark. The light in the attic was on. She could also see her reflection in the circular window, watching from within, grinning, awaiting. Sarah returned the following morning with a local investigator and police. However, the house was deserted. No mirror. There was no sign of trouble. As though it had been left undisturbed for decades, the attic was sealed off with rusted chains. No one took Sarah's explanation seriously. She was instructed to move on and get some rest. However, she was unable to. She was aware of the reality. Long before her grandmother, that mirror was there. Additionally, it was no longer locked in the attic. It was waiting for the next inquisitive person to gaze too long and smile too late, somewhere out there. Did you like the video? Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.